Welcome to the Synced Up podcast, where we talk tech, digital media, and all things business. This week is a good one. It's all about the evolution of the web browser. So let's get into it. So it's fair to say the web browser has evolved over the last couple of years, and we're going to get into it in a minute. But before that, Josh, how's your week been?
My week's been all right. It's been quite similar to the last episode where we've been doing a lot of like lead generation, talking to people. I've really been using it as an excuse to talk to people that I haven't spoken to for a while. You know, when you've got people that you've talked to in the past and they're your previous customers, but somehow they seem to have just like dropped on my list of people who I've managed to keep in contact with, and I think it's because you end up with such a big list of people who you've ever worked with, who you've ever known, that you can't sort of go through absolutely everyone. So I thought went through and I was like, oh, I haven't spoken to this person for absolutely ages. So there's quite a few of those, and I'm talking to them now, and I'm like, wow, has it been like 3 years since I've spoken to this person? It feels like 6 months.
I mean, following on from last week, obviously your industry, your work got very busy right at the end of the year in
Hmm.
December, and then Jan kind of it's almost like it goes quiet again, which is a great opportunity to start talking to people, initiating conversations, and just not being sat waiting for work to come in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to be a bit proactive because it's not, I think we talked about it in the last one. It's not that people actively try and forget you, they just have a lot of other things going on in their heads. So they're not going to think, oh, who are the people who I haven't spoken to for ages of my suppliers? You sort of generally, they're going to be looking for their prospects. So you've got to talk to your prospects. So that tends to be how it goes. So I've just been doing a lot more of that, really. But how about you?
Um, mine's the mine's opposite in a way. It's I feel quite overwhelmed at the moment because there's so much going on, and it's hitting on all different angles as well. So opposite to where you were busy in December and quieter in Jan, we were quiet in December, and now it's crazy in Jan.
Mm.
Um, it seems to be everything like new inquiries. I've had people that have Googled us. I've had people that have been recommended to us, and it's almost like the quite a few people are like, right, new year, I'm going to organize myself. I'm going to initiate that thing I've been thinking about for a while. So I'm going to get my emails checked over, or I'm going to finally get an IT support company to help me. So there's in terms of like new inquiries, I think there's about 8 that I'm dealing with
Oh,
personally at the
that's a
moment. Some
that's
of
a
them are
good.
massive as well, like really big opportunities, which is exciting, scary, great, like all the everything. It's always a more interesting. I mean, when it's a tiny job, don't get me wrong, I still do try and do a good quality service and make it great and special for them. But when there's more money involved, or when it's a bigger project or a bigger job, it just gives you that extra level of alertness and mind and so yeah, a few of those mixed with then existing clients are now starting to action things that they'd put on the back burner. And so I've probably got 4 or 5 existing client projects to the point where, and I phase in and out of this. It's probably one of my biggest sort of flaws as you know, doing day-to-day work where I can't stick to a system like a
Mm.
to-do list. Well, sometimes I've been using Microsoft To Do, sometimes I've been using Trello, sometimes I just write notes on a notepad, then I'll switch to doing a digital notepad, and then I'll then go back into using OneNote, and I just can never seem to stick to a system. You're
I'm
like this, I
exactly the
know.
same, and
Yeah,
I thought like I know there's other people that, well, obviously you do it,
yeah.
but I didn't. I know it's a massive problem, and every time I try and get into a routine of writing things on a list or being like, like we use Monday, and Monday's fantastic. I've got it all set up to give me a to-do list, and then I just
Then you ignore it for three
I,
days.
it's not even like I actively ignore it. It's almost like I haven't. I'd need to make it a routine, but I think I just get thrown around too much on the day to day that I
I think
forget.
ultimately I'm the same. That's why, because suddenly you're doing project work and you're in the client site for a few days, then you're back to reacting to lots of different things and yes, giving yeses, and then you're doing bits and pieces, and then it's suddenly, oh no, now you need to look at your accounts, oh your tax, you need to look at
Mm.
that, you need to look at your marketing, you need to, and then all it's yeah, being that chaotic kind of juggling of a lot of different and wearing a lot of different hats. It yeah, that to-do list becomes really important, and it phases in and out of importance for me. And it's at the moment it's paramount because I'm juggling quite a lot and I don't want to drop any balls.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
interesting challenge.
No, that sounds crazy because, and I know what you mean in terms of when you get like a big project in, and if it's a quiet time and you get a big project, you think, oh, fantastic, I can put all this time and effort into it. And then, but then if it's you're already busy and then you get a big project, you want to put the time into it, but at the same time you're like, oh man, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
I just have to book time slots in the diary. And if there's like inquiries coming in, I'll book a meeting, put it in the diary. Then I can like almost forget about it until that point. As soon as that meeting's happened, it's like, right, okay, now I need to do a quote. So I'll put a quote time slot in my diary. Do you see what I
Yeah.
mean? I just have to keep managing my future self. And that seems to keep me in line. And then
Mm.
my calendar gets busier and then it's less, and then things start pushing back for weeks.
How
But
do you
that
use how are you about using your calendar? Are you pretty good on putting
I'm rigid.
events in?
That's it. I'm rigid as in I live and die by my calendar. So if my calendar's
Okay.
blank for the day, not a lot of productive things might happen. When I'm hot on and when I'm very busy and trying to be organized, I'll put a lot of stuff in my calendar and then I'll do it. So
Yeah.
I'm quite good at following it.
I'm I go through phases. It's a bit like another to-do list for me. Like I want there are things that go in my calendar that are like that often like Tish will put in, and that's fine. I do check my calendar more or less daily. So I don't miss things that are in there, but a lot of the time I don't necessarily put things in there that I should.
Yeah.
So there will just be gaps, and that gap will appear, and I'm like, what should I use this gap for? And then I'll either use it for useful things or not.
Yeah, and I think that's like a Friday or a Monday job of organizing your week
Yeah.
ahead and then thinking, what do I need to do? What's priority and putting stuff in it. But I think we should probably return to this topic when it's
Yeah. Okay.
managing your time, organizing yourselves, and managing many tasks at once because it's a great topic and a great discussion. I'm glad we kind of covered it a bit here, but we
Yeah.
need to kind of
Yeah.
we need to get into the
We've gone
main
off
topic
on.
of the week. There's something that inspired this, which is a conversation with a customer. And it's all around the web browser evolution. So when I'm talking a web browser, you'll probably just, know it as going on the internet on your computer. And I'm mainly talking about desktops here. Obviously, web browsers are available on your phone. If you're on Apple, the default is Safari. If you're on Samsung, the default is Chrome. Or no, I think Samsung have their own web browser, but most people just download Chrome and use that. But I'm talking about the web browser on a desktop, whether it's a Mac or a PC. Because, and I'm going to ask you some questions around this,
Okay,
Josh, to
I'm ready.
see what your opinion is of it. But modern work, whether you're in the Google environment, Microsoft environment, or whether you just use a series of apps, you've mentioned a few today, Trello, Monday.com,
Yeah.
apps are moving to the web browser, right? The
Yeah.
web browser has become a place to work, whereas historically, the web browser was just something you go on the internet,
Yeah.
right? And all the apps and software would download onto your computer.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't necessarily the case anymore. It's definitely not the case anymore. So there's some key areas I want to talk about in the web browser, and particularly like performance and how it affects your computer, and
Yeah.
especially leading into using AI within the web browser as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if the person's listening that inspired this podcast, they'll know who it is. But anyway, what's your opinion? What web browsers do you use? What apps do you use in those web browsers, Josh? Give me a bit of what's your experience with day-to-day web browsing?
Okay. So I used to be an avid sort of Chrome user. So Chrome came out. I can't remember when, but it became like the sort of the one to use. It was really easy to use. They seemed to be really pushing it. So I used Chrome up until really when we switched from Mac to Windows, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
um, but and then obviously you had Internet Explorer, which
OG.
I mean, did anyone look at Internet Explorer?
It was buggy. I mean, you were forced to if you
Yeah.
had a Windows computer before like Chrome became a mainstream operating system. Everyone was using Internet Explorer, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose yeah. We didn't have a choice. And
Firefox would have been a counterpoint back then.
yeah,
Firefox is like the prelude Firefox, I think chronologically, more people started using Firefox, and then Chrome came out and just sort of swept a huge stake at the sort of market.
Yeah, and I'm always a little bit. I guess I'm a maybe a little bit attached to brands where I didn't know anything about Firefox. I did use it for a little bit of time. I was sort of forced to at uni because I don't know if I mentioned before. So I studied computing at uni.
Yeah, you did.
So I was actually I at the time I was sort of forced to you test things in each browser, which apparently doesn't seem to happen anymore because the amount of bugs on like really prime browsers are pretty.
I think they're all Chromium based these days anyway. So I think like
Mm,
Chrome and Edge, because Edge is the evolution of Internet Explorer, right? So
yeah.
Edge is Microsoft's web browser. It's the one that's embedded
Mhm.
on a Windows computer, as opposed to Safari on Mac. And if you want to use Chrome, it will ask you the question: Are you sure you want to move away from Edge? We're really good now. Are
Yeah.
you sure? Do you want to? Sure, you don't want to just try it? But yeah, obviously Chrome is one that most, but Edge is the one that is the embedded Microsoft one.
Yeah. And I I'm actually it might have been it was a conversation we definitely had about Edge. And I think I was a bit undecided. Jack uses Firefox. I'm pretty sure that's his go-to.
Hmm.
He doesn't think much of Edge. Whereas I quite like the idea that if I'd like to think that if Microsoft have decided that they're going to put a lot of time and effort into Edge and that's what comes as standard, hopefully it'll be better optimized than like a third party and
Yep.
it's going to work better with the software. And to be honest, I have a good experience with Edge. I think it's great. The only thing I don't like is Bing search because what is Bing?
Frustrating is what it is.
It's
It's just like a lower existent, lesser form
yeah.
of search engine, right?
Yeah.
There is an audience for it, but predominantly the audience are begrudged because they haven't hit the frustration point where they've gone, I'm just going to change my search engine to Google. They've just left it as default, because
Yeah.
default out of the box, a Windows computer, if you've not signed into any accounts, will be Microsoft Edge as the web browser that's going to use Bing as the search engine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't blame everybody for changing it to Google search, and
Mhm.
fair enough. I haven't had a bad experience with Edge either. And my
Mhm.
general opinion of which one to use is just base it on, well, you might already be embedded in one. You might be having all your favorites. You can move them over and all your like passwords saved in one, because that's one thing that the web browser has become, is a password manager as well these days. And we
Mhm.
spoke about that on a previous podcast. Um, so it depends. You might already be embedded in one, and therefore it makes sense to carry on using it. My rule of thumb is if I use Microsoft 365, I will use Edge. If I'm
Mhm.
using Google Workspace, I will use Chrome, and
Yeah.
advise my customers to do the same, right?
Yeah.
Because you can link it to your primary Google account or your primary Microsoft account. You're probably going to end up having a Microsoft and a Google account anyway. But as a primary browser, like you said, I like to believe that Microsoft will optimize their web browser for their products.
Do you think you do the same with like Mac and Safari as well? Or
Oh,
what's your
that's a
thoughts on
difficult
Safari?
one. I'm about to go down the Mac route, and
Okay.
I will keep you updated. I support Macs and regularly use Macs, but I don't own a Mac, and I think there's a difference in ownership of how I want
Mm,
because I've got so much embedded already in my Edge browser.
yeah.
I don't know if they even do an Edge browser for Mac.
I don't know.
This is what I
Mac would
mean. I
hate
need to look at that.
that.
I'll have a look at that.
Mm.
So here's the second part of that question. How many apps do you use in your web browser? How
I
many tabs do you have open that are app
now
related?
that's a question.
Yeah.
So tabs I keep very few
Yeah.
because I will get muddled, confused. I'll lose track. If I know I've got too many tabs open when I've got like two outlooks open with the same information on each, and it's like that'll probably happen at maybe six. So six is like my cap out. At that
Yeah.
point, I close everything. I'm like, just start again because you've made a mess.
I try to keep it low, but I've seen people that have like 50, 100 tabs open, and I feel physically stressed looking at it.
Well, they've got like tab groups now as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. You
And
can group. That's a
yeah,
cool feature that has like you can group your tabs, and you could call one like productivity, one shopping, one.
yeah. I love the idea of it, but I know I'll get like lost. I will get lost in the tabs.
I've got a key question for you, which is kind of the point of this podcast, I guess. How much computer power does the web browser take, and what does it hit the hardest?
Oh, okay.
And you
I
shouldn't be you shouldn't feel bad if you don't know.
no, I know that it can be very high because I've seen it happen when I've got Monday can be quite intense.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of what else I've used that was really intense. Um, I can't remember. There are a few apps, and when they're running, I do have a look in like the task manager, and I'm like, what's slowing us down? And I look, and it's like Edge, CPU 90%. You're like, whoa, what's going on
Do you know
here?
why?
Okay, why?
Because it's uncapped, the
Okay,
amount of RAM it can use, memory.
okay.
Speed, like, very quick lesson. Obviously, your SSD, your storage drive is how much space you have on your computer.
Hmm.
Your memory, which some people confuse with storage space, is really the best way to explain it is how many tasks you can do at one time.
Hmm.
And then the processor or CPU is how powerful the general machine is, right? So the web browser uses a lot of RAM, a lot of memory, a lot of that how many tasks can you do at one time, and there is no cap on it, right? Which
Okay.
means if you've got 8 GB of memory or 16 GB of memory, by the way, 16 is what I would recommend as a minimum these days, but because of the web browser, by the way, of
Yeah.
how much resource it can take, um, if you've got 100 tabs open and some of those tabs are using, and they're like just having a Google search tab open is very different from having Monday open and active,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So depending on what tabs you've got open will depend on how much memory it uses.
Mm.
And guess what? One of my clients last week, they're doing a lot of AI workloads in their web
Right.
browser. They've got 5 or 6 different AI engines that
Hmm.
they're using, and their computer is grinding to a halt because they've
Okay.
got 16 GB of memory.
Yeah.
But knowing their workload and what they're going to be using it for, because the web browser is uncapped and it's just going to yep take all the memory you need, keep going, and
Mm.
they are using it properly, they need way more space. They need way more memory on their computer, and it kind of inspired me in terms of a discussion point because the web browser isn't just a place to go and Google anymore. It's not a
Mm.
place to just search for information. It's a place to work from. And therefore, it has become its own workspace, a place you go to open apps. So instead of Windows taking all the space and the software downloaded on your computer using all your computer resources now, the web browser, that Chrome, that Edge web browser, or multiple, or both in some cases, all those apps that you've got open there, those web-based apps, which all software is moving to these days,
Mm.
that is become the new complete work environment, which means it's you need to consider when you're either specing a machine, when you're planning how much, when a machine's coming up for replacement, um, or indeed when you're deciding how you're going to work and what it looks like, you need to consider um which web browser you're using, what apps you got open at one time. It's not just a case you can just keep opening and opening and never expecting the computer to slow down. You've got to consider that every tab you've got open in your web browser is like opening a piece of software on your computer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you've got 10 pieces of software open, then you're complaining your computer's slow. Well, yeah, because everything's trying to use the resources.
So if you've got, say, if you're one of these people that has 100 tabs open, the idle tabs, so things that you haven't opened, maybe you leave them open and you leave them open all the time, and then you just open your laptop up in the morning. There's still 100 tabs open, but you haven't actually gone on any. Are those? Do you think those still? Oh well, are they
I
still using?
it's going to have to be anecdotal actually, because I don't
Okay,
know. And I
yeah,
think it does depend on the tab that you've got open, whether it's still like clinging on to memory. I
yeah,
think
okay,
it has to cling on to an amount. But for example, if you've got Monday and you haven't gone on it in 5 hours,
mm.
is it still latching on to chunks of space, like your allocated how much
I'm gonna
stuff you can do at
say
one time?
I'm gonna say yes for Monday because I'm sure I've had that before where I haven't actually done anything and I've
This
had it in the background and it's still utilizing RAM. So
I'm going to GPT it right now
okay,
and
okay,
see what GPT says, right? And I'll read it out.
okay.
Have you, tell us about what core web apps, while I do this, tell us
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what core web apps. So in your Edge,
Generally, what I'm
Edge,
using.
yeah, what
Yeah.
do you have as your usual? I'm going to have, these are my, when I start the day, let's assume you've closed all browse, all sessions, you
Yeah.
have nothing in your history, and you're
Yeah.
going to start your work day.
Yeah.
What are your core ones you open?
It'd be YouTube for procrastination. No, I'm joking. I'll definitely be opening Outlook, and I might even open two Outlook tabs, one for calendar, one for emails. Um, there's a bit of software which is called Frame.io, which we use a lot, which is our like like video review app, which is that's like an Adobe, and now Adobe owned bit of software. So that'll open as well, which that could be potentially more intensive because it's very like video and sort of databasey heavy. Monday again, I might even open two tabs of it. That's partly because I might want one on the projects page and then one on like CRM or something. So I might have potentially a few tabs open on that as well. So I mean that's like a basic five, which I could. It might not necessarily be all of them at the same time, but it'll definitely be a combination of those. And I feel like all of them bar I reckon Outlook's probably not too intensive, but that's the point. I don't even use the Outlook app that's obviously built into
You don't
Windows.
use desktop, you use online,
Yeah.
you use
And you know
web
why?
Outlook,
It's because
scheduling.
scheduling as well, but also when you have it on when you've got it and I know a guy who has this problem because he has the same problem on Mac where he uses Mac's mail
Yeah,
app.
Apple Mail, yeah.
So what he does is he'll send something and say it's got an attachment. Because if you just text, it's probably just going to go instantly. He'll send something with maybe an attachment on it. I'm like, great, click send, put that away. Let's get on. I need to go. I don't know. I need to do 2 hours down to like London or something. And then it hasn't actually sent because when he clicks send, it jumped into the sent or the
Outbox,
outbox.
yeah.
It'll jump into that, but because it's got an attachment, it didn't actually upload in time because
Oh,
it
I
might take
see.
20 seconds to upload that.
So he shut the
So he shut the
laptop or shut,
laptop,
yeah, okay.
carried on. So in his mind, he sent the email, but he never actually sent
That
it.
is such a niche problem, though.
I,
You guys sending your big attachments and not giving it a few seconds.
I just,
It makes me sick. Your yeah, the web version, but yeah. So I will always log into my password manager,
mhm.
and then there's a couple of like key. I'm frantically trying to think which my key online ones are, but it's usually like GPT will be open
Yeah,
because I'll be usually like active in a few conversations and that. And then maybe something that I'm currently working on,
mhm.
like if it's a reminder for, oh, I was checking some DNS settings for a client and keeping an eye on that, or do you know what I mean? I'll leave, but if it's more than 4 or 5, I start to get stressed.
Yeah,
I have an
agreed.
answer as well, by the way.
Okay, all right, what's this answer
So I'll try and summarize it with, because as
then?
as standard, like GPT's given us loads of
Here's
information.
the
I could have
scroll.
asked it to condense it. So I asked it, when using a web browser, if you have 50 tabs open but haven't used most of them in hours or days, do they still use memory and
Mhm,
PC power? Right? And the short answer is yes,
mhm.
but usually much less than you'd expect. So
Okay,
tabs can go idle effectively,
okay, yeah.
and they use a very base level um, of processing power
Mhm.
and memory. So an active tab can have full RAM and full CPU access. Recently used tabs do have reduced activity, and then unused tabs, which are classified as sleeping, they are sort of dormant effectively and using a very nominal amount.
Yeah.
Um, so that is the kind of the answer that I would expect. You don't need to necessarily just panic close everything if you're,
Mm.
if you haven't used them in a long time. But it is good practice, obviously, to only have open what you really need at any one
Yeah.
time because it will latch on to a little bit of power. So I asked a follow-up question: does it depend on what apps and sites you're on?
Mhm.
Which, and which you would expect it to be yes, and it is yes. So it says
Okay.
yes, very much so. The type of site or app makes a big difference, even if the tab looks idle. So I think it's fair to say that different sites or apps are optimized differently for Edge or Chrome,
Yeah.
and some will keep themselves in an active state and some won't.
Mm.
It says sites that usually behave well, low impact when unused. So yeah, so it's given a few examples, right? So
Yeah.
sites that usually behave well could be like static sites like blogs, docs, news, simple dashboards, Wikipedia style pages, most admin portals once loaded. Okay, so
Mhm.
that obviously once they're loaded, they kind of just sit there and they can take next to nothing.
Yeah.
Sites that partially sleep, things like Gmail and Outlook Web,
Yeah.
Google Docs and Office Online,
Mhm.
Notion, don't really know what that is, Trello, Jira,
No.
GitHub. These are more like they'll be refreshing, they'll be
Yeah.
partially using a few bits of RAM. Sites that often stay active
Okay.
even when unused. Now,
Mm.
these are
Okay.
classified as red, of like these are ones that are going to latch and keep
Yeah.
being classified as active. Teams, Slack, WhatsApp Web,
Ooh.
Discord.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, these aren't really, some of those aren't really business style apps, but it does show you that it, depending on the app,
Mm.
that's open in the web browser, depending on the site that you're on, will impact how much memory, CPU, and how much power it uses. And because this is the new work environment, it's going to be paramount really to consider that every app or every tab that you're on will have some level of impact,
Mm.
and some of it is really light, and it really does depend, and you can trial and error a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not advising everyone to go into Task Manager or Activity Monitor and go, oh, when I open that website, it's my memory goes up by that much.
Yeah.
But the key thing I'll say, I guess, on the matter is when it's time to refresh your computer,
Mhm.
don't just go, oh well, and this is what most people say. I only do really basic work on my computer. I only have Outlook and the web open.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not all not all people that web browse are equal, because
Mm.
one's person a 50 tab, loads of active tabs, and another person's very light, right? So
Mhm.
consider your workspace, your web browser, as software that is active and running on that computer, because then you can spec it properly.
I guess you've got to imagine that each tab is its own program
Yeah.
and it's just sat in the
And if you've
background.
got Notepad open, that's
Yeah.
equivalent to having like a Wikipedia page open, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Notepad is, as the Windows built-in Notepad tool, is really, really light touch. It's been
Yeah.
modernized a bit recently, and it'll autosave and stuff, but it's been always been a really light touch
Yeah. It's such a
piece of
basic bit of
software.
software.
And that's the equivalent to like a static web page, I guess. Whereas if you've got Teams open in the
Mm.
web browser or locally or
Yeah.
both, it's just going to latch on and keep using that resource, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I just find it a really interesting topic from an IT person
Mm.
and to an everyday person, because the way we have worked as people in business has evolved, whether you recognize it as or not. It might have just happened over time or naturally, and people generally don't understand that the web browser and the stuff you do in it matters to the impact of how your computer's going to perform and how you work.
Yeah, I just had a sort of a quick one on because obviously people go out and buy Chromebooks, which we've discussed how horrible the whole concept of a Chromebook is. But anyway, for those people, um,
No
I'm
comment.
thinking because Chromebooks are generally sort of cheaper, aren't they? Because
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
selling they don't need to be as powerful. But actually, when the whole thing which we've just talked about now, that's almost a lie in a
if you want
way.
a poor experience, go buy a Chromebook and then try and do some aggressive web browsing.
Yeah,
Good luck.
okay. So you actually don't really benefit. You're just buying cheaper, a cheaper and less, I guess, like guess capable machine because obviously you can't download many apps onto it. It's very selective, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
Have
an
you
iPad.
found that this big from my side, I've seen the transition to web-based apps really clearly,
Hmm.
because the less need for servers and then downloading that physical software. I'm frontline, so I see it all the time. And seeing the evolution of that web browser turn from just somewhere to go into the internet to suddenly somewhere where you can open apps, and now it's your password manager, and now you've probably got GPT or some kind of AI embedded in there that's, or even just Google searching that's now AI embedded. It's become such a vital part of your everyday, almost like the phone, that you pick it up and it's no longer just a phone for phone calls and text messages. It's now your access to the internet, it's your access to apps, it's your access to your work life. It's almost like this all-encompassing device. That's my sort of uh almost meta or translation of what's happening here, that whereas the phone has now become this all-encompassing sort of multifunctional device, the web
Mm.
browser has done the same to the PC.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wonder, have you recognized it? Have you had any moments you're like, wow, I'm doing everything in this web browser now? Or has it just been a bit more subtle of a
Yeah,
change?
I mean, I sort of, well, like I said with Outlook, I've actively chosen to use the web version, and I think I usually do anyway. Like if there was a version of Monday that I could download, I probably wouldn't want to use that because I'm always, when it's something that I feel like needs to be updated constantly. So like my emails, I feel like it's not. I don't need that locally because it's it,
You're effectively streaming it, aren't you, when you load it up in the web browser? So
yeah.
it's live, instant. It's just it's just an in look to your Outlook.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas the traditional, yeah, you open the software, then it's going, I haven't been open in 5 days. I need to update, and
Yeah.
it's going to download, update your sent items, update your inbox, and everything catches up.
There's
Wait five
also the
minutes, and then you
download.
can work it. Hey,
Yeah, there's also like the download with emails as well. Because like, I mean, I'm trying to think. My dad needed some help with his emails, and they'd all gotten like desynced and everything had signed out. So it might have even been like a complete fresh install of Mac, and then
mm-hmm.
you put the web the out not Outlook, whatever their mail app is, Mail, put Mail back on, logged back into everything, and it's like, oh, okay, just hang fire for about 3 hours while I download, 50,000 like archived emails.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? But I don't want 50,000 emails downloaded onto this. I've literally just wiped it to
Well,
clean it.
the phone helps about that, because the phone sort of default settings, it will only download the last 3 months, I
Okay.
think, or you can tweak that setting. I think the default is 3 months. I think it depends on the phone brand. In Outlook, right?
Mm,
Mail might be different. Depends on the type of mailbox as well. But the default is it will only download a minimal amount so
mm,
that it's taking up less space
mm.
on your device.
But I would argue, like, okay, some people might want to be able to access emails without internet. But I would argue if I'm on my emails and I don't have the internet, it's kind of a pointless
Yeah,
exercise because I can't send anything anyway. So I just don't need it downloaded. That's
fair.
just me.
I think yeah, the evolution of web browsers, of computers in general. I just thought it was a really interesting discussion point for today.
Mm,
And yeah, I guess the takeaway is maybe consider how much you're running at one point, how powerful is your computer, how much memory has it got? Are you noticing that it's starting to slow down on certain things? And the next time you look to refresh that device, consider that just because you primarily work in Google Chrome, that doesn't mean that you don't need much, memory, and to actually factor it in properly when choosing a device. And everyone works differently, so you need to factor. The best person who knows how you work and therefore what you need is yourself. But obviously, you can talk to me or anyone else in the IT industry about the type of how you work, or even show someone this is generally what it looks like when I'm working, and they should be able to go, yeah, that's the sort of spec that you need. Um, but yeah, the web browser is one of the biggest single evolutions, like other than going like cloud based in apps. But that's the knock on effect. Everything going cloud based has put such an emphasis on web browsers to access
mm.
software, databases, resources, work environments, that the whole way that people use computers has changed. And it's such an interesting reflection and topic. But on that note, we'll call it there. Really interested to hear anyone's thoughts and feedback in the comment section. Should we jump into some questions?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So it is question time in the Synced Up podcast. And remember, if you would like to ask us any questions, podcast@synced-up.co.uk is the primary format to do so. Ping them in and you will get featured 100% because 100% of questions that asked get asked on the on the podcast at the moment. On that note, Josh, do you want to hit us up first with a question?
Yeah, okay. So this is sort of relating back to what we were talking about last week about future planning and stuff. So do you have any early warning signs for like in your future planning? So like anything that you'd be like, if this happens, like I need to take action, like something's gone awry. Is there
Yeah.
anything in particular that you sort of have?
Yeah. The obvious one is losing contracts,
Hmm.
losing customers. That is a huge red flag that the service that we're offering and the experience that the clients are getting has not been up to standard. Now, you could probably make it happen that you get earlier signs than a cancellation of a contract, right? So you
Hmm.
could, by having like regular account meetings and touch points with your customers, and sort of, I don't know, sense checks and just kind of keeping aligned. You can spot those signs a little bit earlier if you, I know if you know that customers aren't happy, that you can do it about it in advance. But obviously for anyone, if they lose, so it's a bit different for you, I guess,
Hmm.
because it's not like you're in an ongoing contract with somebody that
Yeah,
they
not
can.
often.
Yours is usually project-based work, whereas mine is, in some cases, it is a one-off project, and that's clear and done and invoiced and so forth. But often, if people are coming on support with us or managed IT services, it's an ongoing or a termed monthly contract,
Hmm.
right? And so if somebody's unhappy, the obvious thing that they would do is go look elsewhere, find a different provider, and then put notice in, cancel the contract with us. So that, I guess, is the biggest single sign that if we start losing some contracts, especially ones that I didn't expect or think
Yeah.
that we're going to change. And it does take a lot to change in IT because it's a big trust thing. But like an accountant, you don't do it willy nilly.
Hmm.
You don't do it like a broad, like maybe even broadband or phone provider or photocopier.
Feels like quite a faff, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, I'm gonna
exactly.
really
So
mess
people
things
don't
up.
willingly change IT providers unless it's a problem. So yeah, that would be the biggest one, I think.
Yeah. I think for me it would be, yeah, like if it'd be things like reviews, because we always ask for reviews at the end of a project, and if reviews are coming through, they are
Two
anonymous.
star, three
You
star, of
can
course.
usually
Yeah.
guess because of the timing of when they come through. But yeah, if we started getting like, yeah, poor reviews, I'd be like, there's something not right here.
Yeah.
Or not getting as many contracts. So for us it's very like profit driven. It's like how are the accounts looking? So
Yeah.
accounts and pipeline.
Okay. So my one of my questions is, and it's something we haven't spoke about, but we normally always speak about, which you actively avoided. What fitness challenges have you got this year?
Um, well, so challenges is in terms of like what we've got
Events,
planned, or
races, or even what do you want to achieve if there are any others?
well, I think we talked about Berlin Marathon,
Yeah.
or I see I'm
So
always
we're in
talking
on
about it.
that.
So
That's
we're in on
September.
Berlin, we're in on High Rocks March.
Yeah.
Um, those are my two at the moment. I am tempted. I definitely want to do more half marathons.
Yeah.
And as I see those coming up in like the training plan, I'm sort of going to see if I can find ones that sort of
Suit.
coincide with
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that would be quite cool. Because I always love the sort of like race environment.
It's a
A
good
little,
thing to work towards as well, right?
yeah, a little bit of me as well wants to see how many park runs I can get, because I'm like, you see people with like
100
200,
shisha or
yeah,
250 or something,
250, and you're
350.
like, oh, this is crazy. That I'm like, I wonder how many I'm on now. I've already done 25.
I could Google it, but I'm not going to do it right
Yeah,
now. But
no.
yeah.
So maybe just like getting a few stats on that, and yeah, keep.
So my 2 cents on that is one, two for you, one for me.
Okay.
Well, I've got my High Rocks race tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's
happening
it.
Friday, the 23rd of Jan, which I'm looking in really good shape for pro doubles with a guy called Jordan. Really excited for that. Obviously, our races, those are the main ones of the year. My A race of the year will be Berlin Marathon.
Hmm.
But my two things I want to see you do this year is break 20 on the 5K. I
Yes,
think you're nearly there. Like
yes,
really
you're right.
nearly. I think you can do it Saturday, and I'm going to
Yeah.
try and see if I can force you to do it Saturday. So I'll twist your arm after this. And the other one is the 1:30 half marathon.
Yes. Yeah,
So
that's
do a half marathon under 1 hour 30.
yeah,
It's
both
big.
of them should be achievable. I know I should be able to do it. It's just it's digging deep, isn't it? It's digging deep into the pain.
Stay tuned because we're going to see some pain later in the year. Go on then, hit me with your final one.
Perfect. Okay. This is very much down your street. Right. So for a gaming rig setup,
Yeah,
right? What's the minimum spec that you would allow yourself to have for a gaming PC right now?
you. Wow. Okay, maybe I'll do an episode on gaming spec
Okay.
because I'm really at the moment, and particularly maybe a couple of months ago, I was really clued up on current spec.
Hmm.
The state of the gaming world at the moment is awful
Okay.
in terms of pricing. There was a huge
Yeah.
RAM thing, memory thing recently, where memory just quadrupled in price.
Yeah, I've heard
I think
this.
it's evened out a bit now.
Oh, good.
Graphics cards, like which is the main thing, right? If you're building a gaming PC, the graphics card or GPU, that's the biggest impact,
Mm,
right? Closely followed by CPU and memory.
mhm.
But the biggest bang for your buck you're ever going to get in gaming performance
Yeah.
is that,
Hmm.
right? And the latest generation, the 5000 series in Nvidia, have been not great, and the and at the top end, AMD have pulled out and gone, we're
Oh,
not making top
really?
end graphics cards for now. We
Really?
can't compete with Nvidia,
Wow.
so they're
Okay. I
doing
didn't
mid
realize
tier.
that.
They're both great, and they are still competing. Intel are still kind of there, but haven't really released anything inspiring
Mhm.
recently. Um, my minimum standard for now would be my current gaming PC, which I built a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't
Okay.
go on anything slower than that because I've got it there.
Yeah.
I think it's got a 4070 Ti, the original version of that, because they produced a Ti Super, which really annoyingly a couple of months later ended up being a really well priced placed unit.
Damn
And
it.
and basically for the same price that I got mine, and it's like an extra 30% performance. Really annoying. Um, I will do a separate episode on gaming
Okay. Okay.
performance, gaming, like how to design and build, and
Yeah.
like is it worth it, and talking about specifications and stuff like that, because it's a
Yeah.
really interesting topic. I'm glad you mentioned it,
Yeah.
but it's a hard one to answer right now. But it's
Okay.
easy in the fact that, well, my current one, because
Yeah.
specking a new one that's more powerful than that will definitely cost me a couple of grand.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, well, completely back and over to business, and as a nice one that's going to throw you off. I hope you're ready for
Oh
this one.
no.
How do you want your business to be remembered?
Ooh. Okay. No, it's not that. It's not as hard as I think you think it might
Okay.
be. Really, I think I want the business to be remembered as like a really great company to work with. Like every project we do is just like it's great fun, barrel of laughs, really successful, and ultimately that we created loads and loads of value for people. So I think that in essence is really what I want. I'm a people pleaser. So I want everyone to be happy. So if everyone remembers us as the company that made them happy, that's we've nailed it.
And I guess that translates to what it's like to work with you or for you as an
I'd like to
employee,
think
right?
so. Yeah, I'd like to think that everything, you know, we do everything. We love to sort of over deliver.
Good
We do it with a
standard,
smile.
great to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
great standard, great
exactly.
to deal with, and great result.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's how I want to be remembered.
Awesome. Cool. I thought it might catch you a little bit more off guard, but no, perfect answer.
I'm ready.
So that's it for this week's Synced Up podcast. Obviously, I did mention the email address if you want to get in touch with us. Hope you enjoyed the topics of today. We'll see you soon.